they're into this somewhat, and then they started singing. I had no clue what I was getting myself into. They're singing Winter Wrap-Up in unison, off key, but they're singing it. I'm like, all right, what's going on? There's something to this. This is clearly not a joke. I need to know what's going on. And I didn't know any kind of research for it, so I figured if anyone's going to do it, it might as well be me, because I'm always into odd things. So when I moved to North Dakota to start my research, to start my PhD program, I said, this is what I want to do. And first of all, my committee's jaw was dropped because they never met a PhD student who was so organized. I'm so Twilight that way. And they're like, you want to do what? Yeah, My Little Pony. It's a new thing, a new take on the old thing, and there's a bunch of guys. They're really into it, and I mean really into it. And this generates a lot of questions for me. I want to know. Sure. So they go along with it. They're totally supportive of what I do. That's what I love about academia. When you get to a certain point, if you sound intelligent and logical enough, you could make anything research. They're just like, sure, money. Yes. And that makes, yes. As long as you can answer a question, as long as you can go to academic conferences, talk about this stuff, publish it in articles, you can do it. Cool beans. Because last week I was in Chicago at an academic conference doing this exact same thing. Not in this style because we are snooty book people and we do not talk that way. So I had to be all professional and dressed up. I hate that. I even wore a tie. I know, it's scary stuff. But today we are talking about this, coming out of the stable and self-disclosure. So a couple of people have already mentioned about a survey which I had done at BronyCon last year. BronyCon blew my mind. The fact that there were 8,000 people celebrating peace, love, and pony for 3 days was awesome. And I got a wealth of information from them all, and I seriously enjoyed it. And that data from that survey, which I will be talking about in my new survey later, fueled some of this early research. So, before I get into what I was doing at BronyCon, I have to, this part. This has been a big issue for what is coming down the road for me in my research, is this, and why it exists. We all know these stories. You might not know this middle story because it's brand new. This is Sean Williams. He's not been bullied, but a young man at the age of 7 already knows that he can't take his Rainbow Dash hoodie to school. He doesn't know why, he just knows that it'll cause trouble. Why does a 7-year-old know that? Why? It leads to those bigger questions of these other two individuals. Why did these things happen? And even a young boy who has never seen the ridicule already knows he can't do this. This is where my research leads. This is what I want to find out. Why on earth would a young boy already know these things? So, to understand these sort of things, we got to use some theory. A lot of highfalutin stuff that I'm going to try and make sound fun. So you're going to get a little bit of school while you're here. Sorry. I'm sorry, it's my job. I'm supposed to teach you stuff. You know my grandmother calls me an egghead still.
What department is this under?
I am under communication.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I get this little, yeah, communication, because we can get away with stuff like this. So anyway, we have to break these things down into various theories. And the first one I'm going to talk about is social identity theory, which is this notion of how we identify ourselves, not only by not identify us as us, but how outside circles will identify us. So, We have our own personal identity, and I'm going to try and break this down with both the help of the Cutie Mark Crusaders and these two, and in terms of masculinity, because this is where my bigger questions come from. So, within personal identity, we can identify that we have here Apple Bloom, Sweetie Belle, Scootaloo. That's who they identify themselves as. Furthermore, they have a social identity. One is Earth, one is Pegasi, one Pegasus. I should be using proper grammar. I've been in school that long, I should. And Unicorn. Furthermore, they have certain jobs or certain identities outside of just being those types of ponies. They are fillies. And as we all know, there is a distinction within fillies when it comes to coming of age, the cutie mark, which is where this distinction breaks down. You have our antagonists who view that having a cutie mark makes you superior. Yet we have three who say, we don't have a cutie mark, we are who we are, and we are proud of it. We are going to strive to make ourselves better. Even if we don't earn a cutie mark in the process, we learn. Same thing can be said for masculinity. We all identify ourselves as someone. I am Sam, you are you, however you may break it down. And so, especially when it comes to young men, they have a certain identity that they try to sometimes meet. We have this idea that Kimmel likes to talk about called hegemonic masculinity. Like there's this ideal of what a man should be. The problem with that is there is no ideal. We'd like to think it's Chuck Norris, because Chuck Norris is awesome, but he is not the ideal. He is an interpretation of the ideal, but not the ideal. The ideal is something that we've imagined, and that everybody seems within Western society that this is what a young man should be. So, anytime that you deviate from that, questions start arising. What is wrong? Why are you into Fluttershy so much? Can't you get into G.I. Joe? And you know what? Even when G.I. Joe first came out, that was basically a large Ken doll, men got angry, said, my son will not play with a G.I. Joe. And, you know, that's how we developed the action figure. Because they were still dolls. I hate to break it to you, action figures are dolls. Your Optimus Prime is a doll. Yes, he turns into a truck, but he is a doll. Get used to it. Marketing makes everything gendered. Communication makes everything gendered. And how you change these things shapes our reality. The other thing we need to understand is gender identity. The problem within Western society is that we believe that gender is binary. If you're not male, you're obviously female. It doesn't work that way. There have been a number of theorists within queer theory who talk about the idea that we are no longer within a binary, we are on a spectrum of sorts. Because some people we know look very feminine, like Rarity, who on the show talks all about the elegance and fashion and yada, 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 yada. And then we have, you guys still call him Snowflake or Bulk? Bulk Snowflake, all right. Who is the complete opposite? Very muscular, just, because I don't like doing it. It ruins my throat. If I'm going to do that, I'm going to do it as the Macho Man Randy Savage, not as Snowflake. It's just how it works. Yeah. Dig it. So, yeah. So we need to understand that gender is not the binary. It's constantly sliding because it's something Judith Butler discusses that we perform. When we grow, while we're growing up, and even now, we are performing our gender, whatever it may be. Think about, I'm going to constantly run into that thing. Think about growing up with your toys. What did girls get? What did boys get? these things help to reinforce that performance. You know, little girls got the Barbies and the Susie easy bake ovens to do whatever boys get. I got Star Wars, and I had a little bit of teenage, well, yeah. But I had mainly Ninja Turtles, the originals. It's all about Donatello. Actually, I preferred Raph because he was a smart aleck. And I don't know where I get my smart aleck nature from, but it's this idea that gender, we perform it on a daily basis, and whatever we do only reinforces it. So it's the nature of, just think, like my mother is a great example of this. When she was going through high school, back in the mid-'60s, in the small rural town that I live in when I'm not in school, she had to wear a dress to school, public school. She had to wear a dress. She could not wear pants. That sounds like blasphemy, you know. But this was what was accepted within the school dress code at that point. Nowadays, it's not a problem to see a lady wear pants, but at one point, unless you were a farmhand, nope. That's just how it was. So these things constantly shift. I mean, my mother, even though she was wearing pants and she preferred to wear pants, she's still considered feminine. But when she had to go to school, she had to perform femininity by wearing a skirt or a dress. Next, we need to talk about self-disclosure. And this is where the bigger questions start to come out. Because we have within this fandom one really essentially, and I hate using that word, two types of fans, the private and the public. The majority of people that you're going to see at this convention this week are going to be public, because we're all here to celebrate ponies in whatever capacity that we want. And if I had more space to pack this weekend, I'd have come in a Rose Luck cosplay, because she's the most awesome thing ever. But no one else agrees with me. I'm in my single minority, and it's cool. But it's this idea that, you know, we have different ways of disclosing this. Some of us will never tell a soul. Some of us will tell everybody about the wonders of friendship and magic, because that is what self-disclosure does. How much we're willing to share with people. Even when you meet people for the first time, you gauge what you want to tell them at first meeting. You're not going to say, hey, my name's Sam, what's your name? And they'll say, hey, I'm Derek. And then Derek starts telling you about his liver spots in unsightly places. Like, really? That's where self-disclosure comes in, because you need to gauge what is important to be said. Something like this is kind of important, whether or not you want to disclose it or not. So, initially, I had created a survey consisting of about 45 questions that I had dispersed throughout BronyCon last year with this wonderful business card, that a QR code that you could scan and instantly take it right there on your smartphone, and you could just pump it out. Really easy. Had pictures of ponies in it. Who wouldn't want to take that? So I started looking at data, and I started creating some hypotheses, which is something I don't normally do. I'm not a social scientist. I prefer the humanities and interpretation, but my committee said I should. And I was not happy. Said, fine, I'll do this for you. So I created 4 hypotheses, and they all dealt with this notion of self-disclosure and other variables, including, is there a relationship between self-disclosure and gender? Is there a relationship between self-disclosure and age? Is there a relationship between self-disclosure and harassment or bullying of the Bronies? And fans who designate themselves as public Bronies are more likely to attend Brony meetups than self-designated private Bronies. Because some of the work that I've looked at, I'd rather have that picture up than that wall of text. It's distracting. Because Twilight's adorkable. That's just all you need to know. White lab coats, yes. If you ever look at the data between the Brony study from the psychiatrist in South Carolina, or Coder Brony and his, I'm assuming it's a male. He is? Cool. Thank you for that confirmation. I don't feel weird now trying to type out what I should say in my writings. That around 70% of their participants don't attend meetups. That they are that private, that they are just nervous about actually attending these things. Furthermore, if they go with friends who are also bronies, it only drops about 20%, maybe 30%. Why? What is this risk? What are they worried about? So I tried to rationalize why would you even, who cares? But people do. So sadly, in my results of this data, I found that there was no association between age, gender, and self-disclosure. Those two didn't pan out, which was to me kind of shocking, but actually I understand why. It's because I did this survey at BronyCon, who isn't really going to be public there. But out of that group, I had 12% who were. Okay, I've got people who are showing up as far away as Nicaragua who are private. How do you get from Nicaragua to Baltimore to enjoy ponies but not tell a soul? Now, I mean, if you're in America for more than 3 days, yes, you can create a rationale for, oh, yeah, I went up for a job opportunity or whatever. Oh, and by the way, I was in Baltimore and I, hung out with bronies, But you don't talk about that. So that became a big question to me, which I'm going to start dealing with later. But this idea of the significance between the self-disclosure and the teasing and the meetup attendance becomes a big question because it starts to help me develop notions of what will later be called the stable. So the discussion is, since I couldn't believe that I didn't find any significance at the convention, despite what we get through the media. Everybody remembers the Glover piece about grown men who try to get disability and stay home and watch My Little Pony. Mr. Glover, Mr. Glover, Mr. Glover, you're making my life hard. And then I don't know how many people how many people have seen The People's Couch, that little wonderful piece. They had some very interesting lines. They watched the Brony documentary and made some very snarky comments about the fandom in general, and including a line that I still am scratching my head over. One gentleman said, I'm all for things that are gay, but this is too gay for me. That's my thought. What does that mean? I can't wrap my head around that. Yeah, so I'm really trying to iron out that statement, and I can't. I don't know. I'm still working on this idea.
Sir,
Yes.
it's probably also worth pointing out that on that same show, this is Purple Tinker, founder of BronyCon, infamously transgendered. It's probably also worth noting that on that same segment, they were oddly preoccupied with trying to suss out what's in my pants.
Yes. I do recall that.
Is that a man or a woman? That's a man, baby.
That really, that's part of the issue about what now we're trying to identify what a brony is, and it's just like, can't they just be a fan? Do we have to really check everybody's pants? These are the questions that we must address. So, like I said, there was significance between the harassment and the meetups issues, but now I need to talk about. I figured this little Photoshop would get someone's reaction because I don't even watch Family Guy, but I know he does some crazy things, so I figured this would work. But it's this idea of the stable, which I am going to adopt. And I know a lot of people, as soon as they hear the word stable, it's like, oh, that's very corny. But there's a lot of things that I find interesting about this concept. First of all, I adopted a lot of this theory from Eve Sedgwick. She wrote The Epistemology of the Closet, because what I've discovered through most of my research as of late is there are a lot of things that mirror between the two of homosexuality and this fandom. Not saying that you guys are homosexual in any way, but you share a lot of traits that commonly occur within this community. First off, this is the only fandom that I know that has this idea of shame. And like anytime anybody else comes in into a fandom and they're like really excited to tell people, hey, I'm into Transformers, hey, I'm into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, hey, I'm into this and that and the other thing. Your parents like to know what you do. I'm 35, my parents still like to know what I do. They worry about me because I'm up in North Dakota freezing to death, but I gotta at least tell them once a week that I'm still alive. So I can identify with this because when I first started my research in this, my father, who has not really understood anything I've ever done in my life since I've gotten out of the military, always asked me questions like, well, why are you going to college? What are you going to get out of that? Why are you getting your master's degree? What are you going to get out of that? Why are you going for your PhD? Why the hell are you going to North Dakota? All these questions that he just does not understand. So when I had to explain to him my research, because he's like, well, obviously you're doing some sort of highfalutin research that I will obviously not understand because it's communication and you guys read dusty old books and have thoughts and blah, 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 blah. And then I told him, I am studying My Little Pony. And it was... Yeah, that's kind of what it was like. I even felt an awash of shame, and it's like, I'm the one who's doing the research. Why do I feel that? Yes, I'm into the show, because I do get a lot of questions at a lot of conventions that I attend. Are you a Brony? And the short answer is yes, because it's just easier than trying to explain what it is that I do, because really, you can think of it, I look at it this way. I'm a fan of the show. Twilight's adorkable. Every time I watch Lesson Zero, I think of grad school. And how much we rub out our hair trying to please people, and usually causing more damage than good. But I'm not so into it that I can't see the forest from the trees. Because I at least still have the ability to step back and be like, all right, what's really happening here? And especially since I believe a month or two ago when SaberSpark put out Ponies versus Parents, a number of questions started really jumping out at me. Why does this video exist? Why do we need this kind of video? Furthermore, I've discovered that there are Brony coming out videos. Why do we need this? Why do you want to have, I don't know, a tape of murder? I don't know. Why would you film that? And furthermore, and this one just jumped out last week, why do we now have a blog post on how to get the girl's toy at McDonald's? These exist. What other fandom does this? That's my question. Seriously, this is my question. Why do we have to go through these same steps of coming to terms with not only ourselves, but then trying to come to terms with how our family and our loved ones and whoever else that we associate with is going to take this? Okay, these are serious questions. And one of the things that Sedgwick talks about within the closet that I now use with the stable is the stable is a speech act that we engage in. Even if we are not saying anything, silence is a speech act. It is something that we use to tell or not tell. Granted, and this is more for private bronies, the stable is a safe place. It is a place where people feel safe, no harm or ridicule will come of them. But it is a double-edged sword in that it also fosters ignorance and hostility. Because I know that when people do not voice who they are, those around them create myths about how certain people are. We have said, and you can look these up, these are all public access and public record. We have had videos on the dangers of the homosexual in the 50s and what they will do to young men. We've moved on slightly from that. And this is essentially the same thing. Yes, it seems frivolous that these are just people who are into My Little Pony. But myths are created because you do not speak up. They think that you're pedophile, that you're gay, that you've got some sort of arrested development issue, that you've never left childhood, whatever. Yeah, exactly. And when I first started working with this group, with my first group in Pennsylvania, I had questions from a lot of the faculty at the community college. What are you guys doing? What do you mean, what are we doing? You guys are showing up on Saturdays and you're singing songs and you're dressing up like cute ponies, but you're all dudes. Well, first of all, I'm not dressing up because I just don't look good enough. I don't feel pretty enough to do it. They do. It's cool. I'm fine. Why do you have the issue? Well, we just don't feel comfortable. Fine. So after I left, they ended up dissolving the group from the campus because they were concerned. The dean of students was not exactly the happiest person about the whole group to begin with. He's never really been cool with the anime group either, but they all have their thoughts and things. But this is the problem. SaberSpark does raise a good point, especially for those who are still in high school. Hide your power level, as he says. That is important, but I think it's also important that you need to stand your ground. This is who I am. You don't have to jam it down someone's throat, but you just have to make them aware that, this is who I am and there's nothing wrong with it. Because the greatest thing that you can do to eliminate any myth is be the actual representation. Being that representation helps in eliminating whatever myth it may be. Oh, not all bronies are pedophiles. Oh, not all bronies are gay. Not all bronies love Fluttershy. It's a shock. So these are the things that we need to do. Furthermore, I'm launching my second survey that deals with a lot of these new questions that come up that you all can do. And I encourage you to do this. Not only do I encourage you to do it, I want you to spread this information out. This is the new UND Brony study, and I'm interested in all of you. The more data I get, the better, because it makes my job harder to decipher things. And anything that keeps my mind out the fact that I live in North Dakota makes me happy. So, if all of you can do this, but the impetus that I want to let you know is this. If you have any friends, because I've talked to a number of people already since I've been here, that have friends who just will not go out and do the public things. They're happy online and that's it. Like, they're just not comfortable doing the meetup stuff or anything. I want you to spread this message to them. I want their data most of all, because their data is the most important to me, because the questions that raise to me are these. If you're a private brony, how do you maintain that silence? How do you, if you go to Target, because I'll never step foot in a Walmart, politics, yes. How do you buy a Pinkie Pie Do you say, oh, it's for my niece? It's for my little sister. How do you do conventions, if at all? How do you go to meetups, if at all? The issue of harassment, which is a big one for me. Have you been harassed online or in real life? Do you know someone personally who's been harassed online or in real life? These are the questions that I really want to know, because that can help me develop what is going on with the stable, the thoughts, the mentality, the social constructions that go into this concept. Helping me to understand that is going to help me and all of you confront this issue, because this is not a fandom anybody should ever be ashamed of at all. Preach, brother man. Oh, I wish you guys were in my classes. I really do. Because they don't. I have dropped pony questions in my exams, so you are not exempt.
And I suspect that as tired as calculated as we may be, I think the average IQ in this room is probably a standard deviation above.
Yes. Because I've said to other people at this convention, I teach in the Midwest, and I'm from the East Coast, and and especially when I taught at Northampton, I got a lot of people from Jersey, and they will tell you what they think, even if they're completely wrong. And I enjoy that because it's dialogue and it's a learning experience. North Dakota does not do that, because they are well-mannered and they respect their elders. And the first thing I have to say is, A, I'm not an elder. I'll be a wise guy, but I'm not a wise old man, ever. I don't want to be that way. And B, I think their mouths are frozen shut, because they don't honestly talk at all, and I really need them to fix that problem, especially as long as I stay there. So I have QR codes or business cards, and I have flyers out that you can take and scan with a QR reader, and it'll instantly take you to the survey itself, and you can answer all 50. It's now 50 questions, but there's still pictures of ponies, and you, if by taking this survey, will enter in a chance to win a free plushie. Who would want to win a free plushie? Free stuff, yes. Enticement always works. So, yes, incentive, yes. They always preach to us about getting incentives. So, if you don't have a QR reader, here's what you can do. I have a Facebook page and a Twitter account specifically for this study called UND Brony Study. And I want you to spread the message. So if you've got a Twitter account, don't forget that. I don't like calling it a hashtag. That's marketing. It's actually called an octothorpe. Look it up. It's real. It's hashtag UND Brony Study. Spread this word out. And when you do Facebook or the Twitter, I invite you for your comments, your questions that come in through that, because yes, you can do a lot of answers that are textual within the survey, but I also want your thoughts and feedback and stories, because that helps me build a richer data set and make this more readily available for people who aren't outside of academia. Because really, I want this not just to be something that's stuck in our little snooty academic circles. I want all of you to embrace something like this and make this stand, because you guys are the forerunners of making gender more fluid. Whether you know it or not, you are. I had this debate with a academic last week. It's like, do you think you're splitting hairs at this point? I'm like, no. I think this is a great popular movement that can eliminate a lot of the binary essentialism that we have in this country and in Western society in general.
Preach it.
Yeah. I don't need these binaries. I mean, I'm even used as examples within my own department, because my office, and I share my office with two other ladies. Guess who has the girliest desk? Me. because it is full of pony swag. Yes. My students will walk in during office hours and be like, okay. The seat's over there, and we'll now talk about whatever it is you need to talk about. You need water, because I think you're going to get lockjaw. Please stop. So, I mean, that's what I want to eliminate, because yes, I've got a girly desk. Yes, I still get looks going into Joann's whenever I have to buy fabric to sew, because they're not used to a guy walking into Joann's who isn't attached to hip with his wife and looks disinterested. And they're like, do you need help? Nope, I got everything I need. Here we go. Oh, okay, cool. So, this is what I want out of this group. I will be passing out, I'll have business cards and flyers and all that good stuff. Take the survey, spread the word. I want all the data that I can get. Because, like I said, you guys help change everything that we know about this gender binary. I want it more fluid. I want this to be better. I want us to not have to deal with being in a stable or worrying about, I like ponies and why doesn't anybody like me? No, screw that. We like ponies, that's it. That's it. And I will take questions from anybody. Yes, you. Okay. I'll take one. Well, you'll have, if no one else asks questions, then you might get a second chance. So priority. I did asked about some of the factors that go into being meetups. And yes, distance does play a factor because some people just don't have the access, which a lot of my answers did come in with that. Like, I'd go to a meetup, but one's too far away, and that is a problem. We have a Brony group in North Dakota that I helped form, but it'll either be in Fargo or Grand Forks. Those two cities are 80 miles apart, and they're on what the locals call the East Coast of the state, because we're up against Minnesota, and then everybody else to the west has like no anything. Like, they do not even get to, and so most meetups will be about 5 people, and that's about it. But plus it's also extremely cold. Like the day that we had the season 4 premiere, we had 5 people because it was -10. So nobody could get their car started or whatever reason. No, we'll go over the sign. Go ahead.
Yeah, so on the concept of the stable versus the closet, as an LGBT activist myself, I worked at a transgender center in addition to being trans myself, and I've met a lot of activists, and a number of activists, especially in the Tumblr social justice mold, tend to look down at people for even suggesting that the stable is a real thing or comparing it to the closet because they say it's trivial. These are just
Right.
people with an interest. What I've noted, and what I was personally, as a trans person, interested in by the phenomenon of men being interested in My Little Pony, was that from the perspective of bronies and from the perspective of activists who already understand that bronies aren't necessarily gay, the stable and the closet are of course very different. But from the perspective of your average, let's say Southern Baptist, the stable and the closet are identical because the instant you say you're a brony, they assume you're gay, and
Right.
you subject yourself
Right.
to the treatment that people will give to a gay person.
Right.
So that is why I think the line between the stable and the closet can be in totally different sides of the room, depending upon what person you're talking to.
Right.
An educated, erudite, liberal, coastal resident would not think that they are necessarily the same thing, whereas if you talk to Joe Bob Briggs from Montana, he'd probably think that they're the same thing because if you're in the stable, then you are gay.
Right. But there's still this sense of shame.
Exactly, and the sense of shame I've always found comes from the fact that the instant you confess to liking something that doesn't live up to hegemonic masculinity, you are essentially telling the world, I am gay and or transgendered and therefore should be ashamed.
Right.
And a lot of it, I think, stems from the stereotypes.
Right.
That basically, for a lot of people, the closet and the stable are the same thing, even though in reality they're very different.
Yes. So that's why I'm advocating that we can eliminate it. Yes.
So to what extent do you feel this is a result of anything gendered female being perceived as negative, where in today's society, things that are gendered male tend to have more positive attributes associated to them? To give you an example, if a girl decides that they are totally into Transformers, the general societal portrayal is that's not a bad thing, yet here we have the stereotyping that if a guy is into My Little Pony, or if a guy shows, for example, attributes of being gay, various other types of properties, whether gendered female or more towards the female end of that spectrum, do you see that as a trend or a commonality?
I'd love to say that it's getting better, but here's the issue. When you think about tomboys, okay, when a young lady decides that she wants to play baseball or be, rough and tumble, it's cool up until about the age of 12. That's the problem. Because as soon as that young lady decides, when she starts into adolescence, still wants to do all these rough and tumble activities, sexuality starts to be questioned. Why do you want to still do this? Why do you still want to be a part of the softball team? Because everybody knows what all the girls in the softball team are like. Why? Why do we do that? They just enjoy softball. Why can't they just enjoy softball? Why does that question show up? That's what we're trying to just eliminate at this point. That people do look at the idea of, oh, hey, we're cool with tomboys, but no. As soon as a certain age hits, things really start to come into question, and it's not right. So, yes, things are getting better, but we still have issues. You in the back. Say that again.
Why is there stigma about bronies in the service?
Excellent question. Do I have any service members here? Do any of you care to explain it? Like maybe what happens? Or do you want me? Because I'm a veteran myself, so I can see it, but I don't live it.
I wanted to express two opinions. Basically, I would say, well, first off, the military is actually the one place that I do not express my fandom, and I do that for a couple of reasons. One, it does tend to be, especially the older you are, the more conservative you are. So it's a more conservative subset of America. And then number two, I'm also an officer, so I've got to deal with, not just my peers, but a whole lot of people who are, working for me. So I absolutely say, keep everything on the down there.
Right, good. Yeah, this is the thing. We don't encourage you to just shove it down everyone's throat. That's not the way to go about it. But just identify with yourself. So if someone does ask you the question, have no shame in answering. The one with the gray ears. Yes, you. Yeah. Oh. Lavender. I'm sorry, I'm wearing yellow tinted sunglasses. But I sew, I should know. Okay, anyway, ask your question, please.
To what extent, so I understand your, I got a question in while you were talking, I appreciate communication. So I understand that's your background and your lens or avenues through which you have uncovered what you've uncovered. To what extent have you personally, reached out or worked with or had discussions with people among like gender studies or other socially derived fields?
Within women and gender studies, I am currently working on my cognate, which is the graduate equivalent of a minor. I deal a lot with queer theory, feminist theory, and just gender studies in general. So I do have, yes. That's how I know a lot about Sedgwick, Butler, Foucault. These are all highfalutin thought people that we have to read all the time, and you sit there like, what? And then you come into class like, what does this mean? And they're like, we don't really know either, but this is what we think. What do you think? It made my head hurt. So yeah, I am working on that background. That's part of what I'm trying. That's going to be my cognate, and it helps with my specialization, because gender is now, since, I mean, I didn't really think of it when I thought about it when I first got involved, but especially things with like queer theory had not jumped into my head yet. And it took, actually one of my advisors like, look, I'm teaching queer theory, you're gonna be in that class, or you're not getting out of this university alive. Okay. So I take it, it's a great class, because it really makes me think about how all gender is constructed. So it works for me.
Yeah, and just want to say, I think it would help like that, and not just recreating the wheel.
Right.
The situation. Like you're describing. Thank you.
Yep. You, yes.
So is it like the right kind of situation to be staying in this table? You wouldn't be staying in a meeting where, you know, half the kids get some A storylines and everybody has Confederate flags in the back.
Oh. I will just go with what Saberspark says at that point, hide your power level. I mean, I've even heard Dusty say this in the documentary, you know, just choose your battles, man, and if it's not gonna work, it's not gonna work. My hometown, they've always just known me to be this really smart person, which is a lie. I fake it pretty well, and they just think I'm in some highfalutin thought process that they just won't get, and I should just stick to my book learning and stay where I am, because we don't need book smarts around here. That's why the local library is only open 3 hours a week, and I weep. But that's not me, that's just the town.
So you can go in with a feather duster, that's better.
Yeah.
I want to add to what he said. I come from Mexico City, and I come from a large Mexican community. And Mexican culture is to the point that the majority of movies, the male lead would rape the female lead and they'll start dating the next scene.
Yeah, that is a culture issue. That's just the social construction of sexuality within that community that I can't really answer, because I work with it, but it's not my forte. But it is something that we need to be aware of, because you actually do bring up a good point. We also need to understand that on this planet, there are other cultures who understand that there aren't just two. There can be 3. There can be 4. There could be 50 genders. And these can always flow in between. Yes, the Bardacci is usually what most people think of, is the Bardacci, where men will actually dress and conduct themselves in such a manner that the outside world says, what is this? They're obviously gay. And no, within Native American cultures, it's just the Bardacci, it's what they do. Because we all live in Western society for the most part, and we have our understandings about how these things are constructed. I haven't answered anybody until you.
I was curious, I was trying to come up with an independent way to phrase this, and I found one. Did you find in your research any indication of preconception of sexual deviance? Like that people who knew about the Brony culture but were not a part of it assumed, in the same way that they assumed that Bronies might be gay? Did you also find that they assumed that Bronies are by nature sexual deviants? That's part of the pedophilic issue, but not just pedophilia, but just an all-inclusive term of any kind of sexual deviance.
Right. With that, really all I have are, in my survey I don't have anything like that, but I do have questions regarding a lot of statements that come out. Like I do quote Mr. Glover, and how much you as a participant agree or disagree with his statements and whatnot, because these are the common conceptions that people outside of this fandom have. My mother was actually worried about me for a minute, and then she's like, oh, well, you're not getting in trouble or going to jail, are you? No? Cool, do whatever. And she's really uptight, so it's, okay, cool, don't have to worry about that now. The evil glare of your mother is always the worst. I feel you, brother. Yeah, it's mainly the misconceptions that we get. Because I remember, like I said, when I first started just researching preliminary, I actually had a fellow professor at the community college first asked me, "Are they gay?" And I'm like,
That was my mom's first question.
yes.
This convention you run, are the people at it all gay?
Right. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're trained the same way I am. Why are you? No, they're not. You know what? I'm done talking to you. I'm sorry I even brought it up to you. I thought maybe you'd give me some help, but nope, you didn't. So I had to find other people. And I'm glad that the people in North Dakota that I work with are very open-minded, and they help me out all the time. Back in the corner, I haven't. Next to Scootaloo.
Do you think that the fact that the previous generations of My Little Pony were so much worse in learning?
How dare you call Ace from Generation 2, My Little Ponytails, terrible? All right? I know, but everyone always calls it Generation 2, so I got stuck in a moment. It does play a part because I'm not going to say all, but I'm assuming that most of the parents of younger bronies remember that stuff as they grew up. So there's probably that thought. I mean, I had that thought, like, why do you like the smooze? Because I remember the smooze. You know, it's like, that's, okay, you're into something from the 80s. I still love Flock of Seagulls. We're cool. Fine. I'm down with whatever you want to do. So, and to answer your question, it mainly does, I think a lot of it does come from the fact that this is something that people are familiar with. That, most people have heard of My Little Pony. Even my grandmother, who does not get out all that often and lives in the mountains, knows what My Little Pony is. She thinks I'm still weird and an egghead, but it's what she does. But I think, if it was something brand new, maybe the same questions would arise, but since we don't know, can't answer. Okay, you again. Okay.
Do you have plans at all at researching on how people make assumptions on gender? For instance, when somebody says, "Excuse me, sir," without bothering to ask and learn I identify as female. Or, like, for instance, when you're going to a rave and you're all decked out in girl regalia, people say some things like, "Oh, I know you're a guy, but don't worry, I'm okay with what you do." Things like that.
That is not my particular field. There is a lot of academic literature on that, which I may use in my own work, but currently I do not. But yes, if you want that sort of thing, it is already readily available, and there are people way smarter than me answering that question now. But it does exist. So there is work on it. I will ask the gentleman in the yellow shirt. You! Yes, you. I think that's yellow. It looks yellow to me. And I got yellow lenses. anti-Brony. I have not. I think I'm going to have to, because to address this question, I'm going to have to understand their psyche as well. Because, and this is something that we deal with when we do masculinity studies, that masculinity, for whatever reason, always is contested. Everything that someone who considers himself masculine always worries about, is this going to make me look less of a man? So we have this internal struggle ourselves, but we also have the external haters that always want to keep that sort of stuff in check. But yeah, I'm probably going to have to do a little bit of anti-Brony research to get down to the bottom of that. But I haven't started working on that yet. I'm still trying to understand the fandom itself, which could probably be a lifetime of work, because you're all so wonderful and diverse. And it's a beautiful curse that I have, and I'm okay with it. I'm totally fine if this was my life's work and they buried me in Twilight sparkles on the top of my tombstone. I'm totally cool with that. I am totally cool with that.
You all heard it.
You gotta fund it, I'm poor. I'm still a student, just remember that. But yeah, anybody else? I got the same, you're new, yeah.
Actually, my question's changed a little bit.
Cool.
Basically, I'm just sort of curious if you consider the effects of people staying private because of stigmas that have actually been formed by public Bronies. In that there are some Bronies or people who consider themselves Bronies who can actually be aggressive about pushing the whole fandom thing, and therefore the people who are private feel like they would either be pushing the same thing, or they feel like it's already been given a negative stigma by how people have been representing it already, and so they don't want to come out with that.
Right, I haven't. I do know that some, I think it was Coder in his work, actually deals with a little bit of that. Like, some fans actually feel embarrassed by beeping noises, and they feel embarrassed by the more proactive, more aggressive people. But no, I have not done any research linking back to that.
Sort of connects into, important to continue on.
Okay.
It actually connects into the fact that I'm actually Christian, and so you have a lot of the same effect in that there isn't any like test that anyone has to take to say yes, I am Christian, or like similarly, yes, I am a Brony. All you have to do is say I am a Brony or I'm a Christian, and whatever you do at that point basically reflects on the community as a whole. So you have people who are going, I am Christian, and then treating everybody else like crap, and people who are just, I'm Christian, but you know, the first rule is love your fellow man kind of thing.
Just not so much.
Yeah, yeah. See, that's always been an interesting question for me, because I was raised fundamentalist, which as soon as I say that, there gets a quiet hush, like, what? I'm not Westboro, I'm not Westboro Baptist, anything like that. I'm just Christian. And a lot of questions do come, even my professor who excels at queer theory is like, why are you taking this? I'm like, because I'm interested. I don't view people any different. They are human beings, regardless. I just wish my people would understand that, but they don't. And I get angry. And then I have to deal with it. But it is what it is. Yeah, I don't understand how anybody who follows a faith that, does profess that we should treat human beings as human beings, do get against something that does the same thing. You're supposed to be friendly to other people. Like when I came here yesterday, flying out of Fargo. Yeah, Fargo. Ooh, it's fun. Don't start. I ran into one fan waiting for the flight from Denver to San Francisco. And then on the flight, I found another person who is apparently head of programming or something with this. And I was like, cool, I've already found people. And I started palling around with them. The person that I'm staying with at this convention, I didn't even meet her. I barely talked to her. And so we met in the lobby here last night. I have met total complete strangers. I have dined with them. I have talked with them. We engage in this wonderful sense of community because we all like ponies, and that is beyond awesome. And I don't understand how a thing like this, which creates this friendship amongst human beings from everywhere. I can't tell you how many different people I've met. The guy that I first met in Denver is originally from Australia, visiting people in this country for a month. And I just met him. He's like, oh, hey, you got a really cool looking Twilight Sparkle. Thanks, dude. Brohoof, clunk. And it's just like, hey, let's talk. And then we get off the plane, and I actually waited for him, and I'm like, hey, where are you going? Oh, you going to the Regency too? Hey, you want to pal around, and we'll just go? Sure, all right. And we did that, and it just built on from that. And like this morning, I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning because I'm still on Central Time, and I ran into two gentlemen who wanted to go to the diner across the street, and we went over, we talked, we, just had a good old time and had breakfast, and it was like, cool, dude. I don't know you. One was from St. Louis, the other one was from somewhere in this crazy state, and it was just like, yeah, they told me they'd never met each other until last night, and they were palling around. I'm like, cool, I'll hang out with you today. Let's have breakfast. What do you mean I can't have the kids' meal? They don't let you have the kids' meal over at the American Grill, and I thought that was a sin, but that's their policy. Because I don't eat a whole lot for breakfast, and they didn't buy that. All right. I will take the gentleman in the striped hoodie. Thank you for getting out of jail to see the convention. Uh-huh. Okay. My survey has dealt more with the global community. I've had people from, like I said, Nicaragua, Italy, Japan, Mexico, like all over taking my original survey at BronyCon. I mean, 8,000 people, there's going to be a few who are from out of the country, but I didn't expect as far away from outside of the country as some of those respondents that I got. So, I got 5 minutes or, okay, cool, I got 5 minutes. Because everybody loves me so much, and I'm already running over time. This is cool. You guys are awesome. Like I said, I really wish you were my students because they don't talk at all. I can has discourse, and you all respond and things, and I shed an intellectual tear. It's very beautiful, and yes.
You had mentioned earlier that this is the only fandom with a sense of shame, but we also currently live in a world that is awash with fandoms. They're commonplace, they are socially accepted. Have you done any looks at when that wasn't the case, like say early Star Trek or D&D during the Satan Canon age?
I'm pretty sure that there's something there, but I haven't. But it's like somebody always says the joke, I'm a closet Whovian. Like, oh, hey, I'm all this, but also I love, my guilty pleasure is Doctor Who. Like, but they say it jokingly, and so it's not. I'm pretty sure it exists, but I don't think it has the same level. Like, that kind of goes with that. Yeah, it kind of goes with that level of just, well, that's just the geek. That's just the nerd. That's what nerds do. Or to quote Ogre, nerds. God bless them. Yes. We'll go you, and then I'll go you. So go you.
So, I think Storm Chaser had a really interesting point that I just wanted to come back to.
Uh-huh.
When we look at public and private bronies, there's different spheres of our
Right. That's part of what I'm trying to delineate, and that's why I feel that this new survey is going to at least address those questions, because one of the questions that the original study just had, are you public or you're private? And I really didn't have a whole much of a thought about that. It was just like, well, I think you're going to be one of two ways. And then I learned that more people are vocal online because of that mask of anonymity. So I've chiseled it down, so not only do you say if you're a private brony, how private are you? You know, do you just only talk about this stuff online? Have you told a family member? Like how do I separate all these now? Like I'm gonna have to, I hate to say the word hierarchy of this, because like I say, you know, and it's like I want sort of a scale, but I don't like those sort of things because that sounds too social scientific-y. So it's more along the lines of just making it more, I want to call it more fluid, but it doesn't work that way. But in a way, it does delineate, at least create a better understanding of what's going on.
Well, I was just saying, what about relevance in that case? Like for me, I would technically fall under like private brony. It's not something that I like with the people that I like work with face to face. I don't really go through and like talk about it, but mostly it's not out of a sense of shame. It's just out of a sense of relevance. It's like I've talked about, say, a couple cartoon shows like Adventure Time or something like that, and then it's like I've asked, it's like, do you watch My Little Pony? It's just like,
Right.
it's like you, yeah. And it's like, oh.
So.
And it's just, but they don't, so there's nothing to talk about.
Right, right. But in ways you can look at it that you actually sort of buffer it first. You talk about other cartoon shows first to try to find a common ground. Like, oh, hey, I enjoy Adventure Time, or I enjoy this or that or the other thing, and then maybe eventually lead it into that. It's another thing if you just come out and say, oh, yeah, I watch My Little Pony without any context. That's where it gets, yeah.
Everyone's like,
Yeah.
why were you even talking about it?
Right, right.
You always talk about fandoms that have a little bit of a stigma. One to look at is furry.
Yeah, it is, but that's a whole other genre that could take eons of my life that I don't have, and I want to address you again, and then I will get to you.
Does your new survey factor in difficulty finding other bronies to talk to? Some of the bronies that I've met in various chats only feel awkward, whether they know it or not, about it because they feel guilty for being an oddity because they don't know any other bronies.
Say that first part again.
Does your survey, or your new survey rather, factor in difficulty finding other bronies to talk to? Some of the bronies I've met, whether
Okay.
they know it or not, only feel guilty about it because they feel like they're an oddity. They feel like they don't.
Not directly, but it is addressed. Like, because that's where the meetup questions come in. Like, have you ever thought about going to a meetup? Does the thought of a meetup, sound good to you? Like, because I ask them about what activities they do, so that I kind of create a gauge. But no, I don't directly ask that question. Right. So I probably got time for 2 more questions, or am I done? I'm done? Okay. That's all right. No. You're a great class. I loved all of you. Thank you very much.